Zone. That is Tyson. This is a collaboration of the fan section and ROQCS Sports. It's going to be up on YouTube. Our podcast actually is going to be called the fan section. Those of you that have listened to it, thank you so much. It's not our typical intro, as you can tell, because we have the sweet editing of YouTube, which I think is really cool. But this episode is going to be episode 50 on the podcast. I think it's episode 24.
Couldn't tell you.
Okay, whatever. Right on cue. So, I just want everybody to know we are still together. We are still friends. Yes, we're still going to do podcasts together. But we thought it would be amazing because the episode 50 is going to be a really, really cool thing. So we're going to do the totally unnormal, like we cover recruiting, we cover all like the games. This episode is going to be just the 50 best traditions and 50 best players that we think. We put our heads together and figured out some stuff in college sports. And it's not just football. It's not just basketball. I have a couple baseball players on there that I think people don't really know about. So yeah, it's just kind of one of those things where it's us giving back to the tradition of college sports that we both love. So without really further ado, you want to just kick it off?
Yeah, sure. First of all, thanks for the opportunity. I think we're both really excited about this collaboration and doing the video, and obviously going to have the audio only version as well.
Yeah.
But so if you want to start it off with traditions, is that where you'd like to start?
Yeah, traditions. So the first tradition I have and I did Google, did a lot of it work on Google, did some ESPN, did just a massive search, and I was like, okay, so what are the best traditions of college football? Obviously, I'm just going to kick it off for you because I know this is one of your favorite ones because you're probably a little bit biased, but the Ralphie Run, I think is one of the most incredible traditions of college football, like when you kick off a game ever. The fact that you have a live buffalo in a pen, and it's like, it can't be older than a certain age, right? I don't know the rules.
They're all female.
Okay.
2,000 pounds. Tradition started in 1966. It's one of the most fun. We've both been to CU home games, and when they run that buffalo out and the team comes charging out
they
after them,
mile high. And I thought that was special. I was like, that's really cool. But yeah, so the Ralphie Run, for those of you that don't know, is a University of Colorado thing. It's a live buffalo that just takes off around the field, and the guys, like, if they're not fast enough, they get trampled.
Yeah. There's a team. They're actually on scholarship. The runners, males and females, and they have their cowboy hat and cowboy gear. And they basically, a lot of people think from the outside like they're pulling the buffalo along. No. They're there to kind of direct him or her as she runs. Yeah. And then they run her back on the north side end zone, right back up into the trailer.
I talked to one of the guys actually at the game. So there was a CU game like a couple years ago that I went to, and I was able to talk to one of the guys, and I said, "Hey, how does it work?" And he's like, "It's really just all her." Like you just said, we kind of guide her a little bit, but it's really, really stressful. Once she sees her pen, she actually picks up speed because she knows this is home for her, and she goes way. So if you time it, she actually goes faster on the last 50 than she does the first 50. Because as soon as she sees her house, she just bolts in.
And it's so funny to see, when they do that. Obviously, the teams in general aren't already on the field, but you'll have specialists who are out there, kickers, punters, and obviously the chain crew on the sideline and the referees, and you'll see them. I mean, they climb up on the fences. They're like, let me give this buffalo as much space as possible.
Isn't there a Colorado meme sign that says, if you can't cross this field in under 9.9 seconds, then you're gonna get ran over by buffaloes?
Yeah.
Like that. There's So anyway, that's obviously what we're talking about here. This episode is gonna be all about special traditions. And we went a little bit. I don't think we went long at all. I thought it was perfect. But the Ralphie Run. So yeah, kick it off, man. Player tradition. What do you got?
Yeah, I'll stick with tradition here, and it's a newer tradition. It started in 2017 with the completion of the Iowa Stead Family Children's Hospital. I know you like this one a lot.
I love this one.
The Kinnick Wave. Yes. You can see from the stadium, the hospital, the top 5 or 6 floors, overlook the stadium. And going into, is it the fourth quarter?
I think everyone looks up, fourth quarter.
Looks up and waves at the kids.
I know they do it frequently, but yeah, the kids basically kids that are in the hospital for chronic horrible illnesses,
terminally ill.
Terminally ill, Make-A-Wish kids, right? They get the chance to see the diehard Iowa fans that get a chance to see their favorite players play. I know that there is a rumor. I don't know if it's true or not. I didn't really I kind of googled it a little bit, as far as if the players get a chance to meet the kids, and in fact they do. Before the game, so that's really cool and really special. So Iowa, hats off to you guys for doing something awesome because
very special.
On the field, you've been a little lackluster at best. So, I'm gonna stick with UGA, obviously, which I have. I'm not going to say UGA because it's just totally biased, and I think in my head he's number one. But the Rambling Wreck and the story is this, it was actually overhauled by a mechanic students back in the day. They got this car, they fixed it up in the mechanic shop, and ever since then they've been rolling that thing across the field. And I guess it's named. I forget. I think it's named after the actual original athletic director who purchased it. And then I think it was like 2007, 2009, one of those 2 years in between that. But they actually purchased the actual car model for it, and then they just built it up, and it's just cheerleaders and the little bus get in there and they roll around the stadium.
You know what it reminds me of is like the 1920s mob boss movies are there. It's a 1930 Ford Model A Super Coupe. For those of you who are trying to recreate that, I think it may be one of only like 2 or 3 that exist in the world.
I think it's one of.
Yeah,
like, it's one of one. We'll just put it because it's the Rambling Wreck. I mean, let's be honest. Like there's not too many other ones that are out there for that.
A fun tradition, a very fun tradition. How about Purdue and the world's largest drum?
I don't know. Texas thinks they have the world's largest
drum. Yeah, well, that's a good point.
Don't. Did you hear the story? So I don't want to cut you off, but Purdue told Texas to meet him and they'll measure, and Texas never showed up.
Oh, really?
Never, 2008, they said we'll meet you here.
A literal drum measuring contest.
They were gonna measure the drums because Texas claims they have the world's largest drum too.
I do remember. I think it was last year. Purdue was playing at Notre Dame, and Notre Dame had something. They had some construction or something, and they had kind of brought in the dimensions of some of the entrances into the stadium, theoretically, so Purdue couldn't bring the drum.
That's brutal.
It was like their first game in decades not having the world's largest drum on the side.
You know what? If I'm them, I'm bringing it still, and I'm like, all right, we'll just keep it outside their line.
Helicopter.
Like,
somebody outside the stadium bashing it.
That's hilarious.
Purdue had a surprisingly very good season this year.
They did.
I think it was you. Wasn't it you that had the idea after the national championship that team should have to play Purdue for the actual?
Team should have to play Purdue, yeah, because they I think they were what, 2 losses? No, they weren't 2 losses. They were still solid.
But they beat 3. I think it was 3 top 5 teams.
Yeah.
Michigan State, Iowa was top 5 at the time.
They were the Purdue Spoilermakers.
Spoilermakers, that's right. Yeah.
They had a really, really good year for them. And we're going to get into all that later on. Promise, we're going to do our headlines and outlooks and previews. But keeping up with the tradition of things, I'm actually going to go with this one. Not a lot of people know this one, but the Oregon Duck is Donald Duck on a Harley. And he goes around the stadium. It wasn't always Donald Duck. And I did a little bit of research on this one. So Oregon had they had a drawing of a duck, and they had the original duck looked a lot like Donald Duck, but it wasn't Donald Duck. And then it was their athletic director. I forget it was the one before the owner of Nike has a standing. It's like a handshake deal with Walt Disney that they use Donald Duck now. I did not know that. I don't know how they pulled it, but yeah. So a lot of people, you old school Oregon fans, are like, "Yeah, good job, fans." Actually, yes, I know because we do our research. It's not the original Donald Duck. It's now, but back in the day, it wasn't. Now it is.
You know what though? Like you're saying for the old school fans, if we get something wrong or if you got some input, shoot us a comment. Yeah,
absolutely. Let us
know. That's interesting. I did not know that one.
That was really, really cool.
One I know that you are very high on, and is personal to you, is the March On, the Army-Navy game.
And
how they reserved that last weekend of the season specifically for this one game.
And they should. And honestly, I think they should do the Air Force. I think they should do that for Air Force as well. I really do. Like Air Force, Army, Navy, Army, Air Force. I think those should be the last 3 games of the season.
For the Commanders Cup, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Because, I mean, you play it throughout the season. You know what I mean? Like, and it's like, oh, Army versus Air Force is like week 3, and nobody like really knows about it until.
Right.
But you say Army Navy game, it's got its own day of the week.
Well, that rivalry goes back to 1890.
No, rightfully so. But I'm just saying, like, if you want to include all the military. But yes, I love the March of the
But and the best team of the 3 right now is clearly Air Force, right?
Don't they play CU this year?
At Air Force. Okay, let's not talk about that one just yet.
It's a fun game to go to.
But yeah, and just sorry, one last comment on that. I mean, they bring the president usually goes to that game, and I mean all of the pageantry and
celebrities are there too. I mean, and it's played in an actual NFL stadium, which I think is really special, and it's played. It's just I think it's pretty brutal though. The losing team has to go first when they sing,
Mhm.
and then they have to listen.
Mhm.
Like that's just, I mean, that's pretty.
It's a little
You
knife
got
in the
respect,
back.
but at the same time, like, come on now, like. Here's one fun fact, and after this I'm gonna stop going traditions for a little bit. I'm gonna start naming some players. But Ole Miss, for those of you Ole Miss fans out there, the speed limit wasn't always 18 miles per hour around Oxford until Arch Manning, who actually has his number 18, retired at Ole Miss. A lot of people don't realize that, but there was a bunch of students around Oxford that committed I think it was the town council to change to make it until posted 18 miles per hour around. So like the speed limit's like 25 miles per hour around. No, it's 18 miles an hour in honor of Arch Manning, which I think is absolutely awesome.
I wonder if that actually limits or like cuts back on some of their car accidents.
Yeah, maybe,
I mean, it's 25 to 18, right?
Yeah, I don't know. But
that's
posted, yeah.
That's college football tradition right there at its finest.
You're huge when you get the speed limit changed for you. Oh my word.
I'm going to jump to players as well.
Okay.
Not to cut you out at the knees there, but for those of you who are newer, you maybe younger football fans, everyone thinks, oh, Lamar Jackson, he's the Swiss Army knife. Before Lamar Jackson, there was a gentleman by the name of Michael Vick. 1999 to 2000, played just 2 years for the Virginia Tech Hokies. In both of those seasons, he finished top 6 in the Heisman voting.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
he was doing things that like you couldn't do at the time in a video game.
Yeah.
Like they made the video game like you could move around and scramble because of him.
Mm-hmm.
It was insane. His speed was no one had ever seen anything like him. I guess. And what's funny is Allen Iverson still says he's better than Michael Vick.
Yeah, well,
his highlight tape is pretty solid.
Yeah, Iverson's smaller. They're both from Virginia. What's that? I can't remember the name of that city over there.
Oh no, I don't know where they're from. I just know, but also D. McNabb at the time too.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people were doing it, and it was just like the age of the prototypical black quarterback.
McNabb, you had Steve McNair at that time as well.
Really good too. Like the scrambling. I mean, before them it was John Elway. Like scrambling.
Well, yeah, Doug Williams.
Yeah,
but he was. Too. But they were still more pocket passers than runners. Yeah. Vic, I mean, he would run for 150 yards in a game.
Yeah, backyard football stuff. It was like wasn't he like the first player to run for like 1,000 yards and throw for like 2,000?
Yeah, but I mean that's probably the case.
Like it was nuts, and the fact that he didn't win a Heisman, come on, like he changed the game.
Yeah, well, and he took Virginia Tech, who at the time was kind of a mediocre program. He took them in 2 years to the national championship game. And they lost to Florida State.
Yeah, but still, I mean, this goes to show when you have a really good player, gifted player who like won, Michael Vick, anything can happen.
Yeah.
But yeah, so moving on, I'm going to move to basketball, and I'm going to give Shaquille O'Neal from LSU a little bit of love. The fact that he was the first dominant big man in college, like you had your Christian Laettners, you had your who else? Wilt Chamberlain's, I think, back in the day, but no one was as dominant in college to the NBA and like sustained it for that level of success like Shaquille O'Neal did. And I think that he's definitely on that list as far as like one of the greatest players of all time in college basketball for sure.
Yeah, there's no. I mean, he even in the NBA. I mean, they still talk about it today. He is one of those. Like you hear a lot about Steph Curry revolutionizing basketball with his shooting. Mm-hmm. Well, Shaq revolutionized basketball with his post play. Nobody could stop him. They invented a term, hack-a-Shaq, for him. Yeah. And people laugh at it and remember it as like, well, they hacked him because he couldn't shoot free throws. Mm-hmm. But it's like they hacked him because he wasn't good at free throws, but also because they couldn't stop him.
They couldn't do anything.
Yeah.
In the post, he posted up and he did that sweet elbow. Like it was nasty.
Oh yeah.
No one had a defense for it. Basically, is what we're saying.
All right. Well, so then I guess maybe I'm going to jump back to a tradition here.
Okay.
This is one that hit me just this past season, but the jump around at Wisconsin in Madison. It started in 1998, and obviously jump around from House of Pain was a 1990s hip hop hit. But
Doubtfire.
But but for me, it was that first season in 2020 where the Big Ten had cut their season in half. They were going to cancel. Then they came back. One of their first games back, it was at Wisconsin. And I was watching this live on TV and seeing, 60,000 people in the stands jumping around. It kind of signaled to me like, hey, we can get beyond the COVID stuff and we are moving forward. Yeah. That's what we do as Americans. And I thought it was pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's a sweet tradition for sure that like whoever came up with it. I'm going to give you another musical one, tradition actually. started because of the cold. We're going back to Virginia Tech in 2000. They actually played Enter Sandman by Metallica. And the only reason why is because of the game, everybody was it was like such a cold weather game that they didn't have anything. So they said, keep up and jump with the beat on the Jumbotron they had.
Mhm.
And they just had like a little jumping thing. And it was Enter Sandman. Every time like the beat hit, they all jumped. So and it became a tradition that they're still doing to this day.
That is a fun
Enter Sandman
tradition.
is awesome. So yeah, I just like music in games.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it gets you hyped up. It gets the players hyped up. It's and we are in the we're in the best era possible for how they broadcast games.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
it's
incredible. It's incredible.
Just sitting there watching everything. I mean, it's yeah, you're right. It's incredible.
How about in the state of North Carolina, one of my top players, Julius Peppers,
Oh man.
1999 to 2001. He won the 01 Bednarik.
Okay.
30 and a half sacks in his career, which is top 25 all time, and he only played 3 seasons. And you reminded me, I mean, this dude was a stud in basketball as well. He two-sport athlete. Most people say he certainly could have played in the NBA, chose to go into the NFL, obviously had an incredible career.
Yeah, he kind of turned the tide for edge, what you look for in a prototypical edge rusher. Like, he wasn't he could stand up, he wasn't your hand in the dirt all the time defensive end, right? Like, when you think of Julius Peppers, you think of, like, old school, like, even Bill Romanowski type player, and you're just like, what do you categorize this guy as? Is he an outside linebacker? No, he's a pure edge rusher, and he set the tone for a lot of players like Von Miller, even, you know what I mean? Like, so.
Oh, yeah.
It's just one of those things where it's like, when you change the position, and now that they typically scout you, how close to this guy are you? That's when you know you've made it.
Well, and also teams had to respond by finding more athletic tackles. Yeah. I mean, up to kind of that point, it was like you just take the biggest, fattest guys and put them on the O line.
It's all about power.
But J. Pep would just go right around them.
His first step, I think, he invented the term. How fast is his first step? His first step was lethal. That's a great choice. I'm gonna go basketball again, and I'm gonna say Michael Jordan. Obviously, North Carolina standout. Kid got cut in high school, I believe. Never got cut again. Can you imagine being the coach that is known for cutting Michael Jordan? I mean, okay, I get it. He wasn't very good, right? That's why he got cut. But his work ethic, and I think that before Kobe Bryant, there was the Mamba mentality of that Kobe Bryant had. Michael Jordan had this amazing, insane work ethic to where he wasn't going to let anybody beat him at anything. He's still there's a new video, not new, but there's a video of him challenging Magic Johnson to a golf tournament. Still. He still thinks he's the greatest at every sport of all time, and I love it. Michael Jordan.
That's it. Yeah, I mean, a tremendous player at North Carolina. Obviously, won, if not 2 national championships under Dean Smith there. But that brings up an interesting conversation that we've had, I think, a little bit in the past. But it's like, in order to be the greatest, you almost have to have some level of narcissism, right? Because he in his NBA Hall of Fame. When he was awarded Hall of Fame accolades for basketball, in his acceptance speech, he mentioned his high school coach.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
He held on to that and used that as motivation for 30 years.
That's nuts.
So I don't know. And then you got guys like Tom Brady does the same thing. He's like, these 7 quarterbacks were drafted ahead of me. It's like, bro, you've won 6 Super Bowls. We got it. You're the GOAT. It's okay.
The greatest of all time. Yeah.
But anyways. Hey, how about sticking with basketball? How about one Chauncey Billups? Chauncey Billups played guard for the University of Colorado back in the late 90s and really progressed the Colorado program. He had the Buffs in the NCAA tournament 2 of the 3 years he was playing for the Buffs, and then obviously went on to an incredible career in the NBA.
He's the reason why Detroit won the title, flat out. I mean, you had the Hamiltons, you had Rip and Ben Wallace, you had
Rasheed Wallace.
You had a pretty good core around him, but Chauncey Billups is one of the greatest leaders, I think, of any. And it makes him mad. Everybody's like, "Well, Chris Paul's a great leader." No, Chris Paul learned how to be a leader from Chauncey Billups' style of play.
Yeah.
Chauncey Billups was able to keep so many egos around him in check. When he came to Denver, you had Kenny Martin, Allen Iverson, Carmelo Anthony on the same team. Talk about ego.
Yeah.
And he was able to get. I mean, and that was the first year that Denver, I know, got out of the second round, because they kept getting bounced in the first and second rounds, and everybody was like, "Who's why?" It's because of Chauncey Billups' leadership that he was able to do this.
And by the way, that's recognized. His leadership is not just a theoretical concept.
No.
He's the head coach for the Portland Trailblazers right now. Like, they would not hire him if they thought he was, you know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like that's a validation of what you're saying about his leadership.
Are you a leader of men? And that's one of the things, that's an old football term. It's like, it's going to hurt you to say Mel Tucker. That's one of the reasons that got him the CU job, is everybody was like, he's a leader of men. Yeah. That's a big NFL team. How can this, like, Vance Joseph was a leader of men, but he wasn't very good at it, as we find out. But, like, can you manage not just the everybody knows the schemes, everybody knows the plays, everybody knows that, a layup, a 3-point, like, stuff like that in NBA terms. Can you manage all these different iconic players that have already reached the pro level? You know what I mean? Like, and Chauncey Billups is one of the few that I think can.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah. I'm going to go to a tradition that not a lot of people talk about. University of Washington, they actually called it boat gating, and during home games for actually the weekend of the University of Washington, Lake Washington, those where all these boats get together, and it's basically just like think of Lake McConaughey on spring break. It's just like that every weekend, though. Like, even in the cold weather, they'll still boat gate for home games. And I don't see when it started, but people just started boating. And the cool thing is the stadium overlooks the lake, so you just see all these boats like just randomly just chilling there. That's a tradition that they call boat gating down in the University of Washington, and I thought was pretty cool.
Yeah.
What about you?
Yeah, we got some traditions in the Pac-12. But
hopefully the tradition of winning here soon.
Well, we'll see. We will see. How about a player from college football, Arizona State? A lot of people forget he was such an incredible college football player because he's been so successful in the pros. Terrell Suggs, T-Swizzle. Wow. Won the 2002 Bronco Nagurski Award, still holds the all-time single-season sack record. He had 24 sacks in one season at Arizona State.
That's crazy. I was going to say, to piggyback off that people don't really Pat Tillman.
Right? Oh, yeah.
He was actually a really good player. And then, obviously everybody knows about Pat Tillman and, what he did and his sacrifice for the country, which is awesome. But, yeah, like, I think he's in the College Hall of Fame as well. Well deserved. It's not just like because he did this. No, he was a really good player.
He was a ball hawk.
He was going to be a first-round pick.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, Pat Tillman to piggyback off that.
One more thing, too. Yeah, I'm just thinking of this in real time, too. You also had Vontaze Burfict from Arizona State. Arizona State's kind of got
a lot of good players.
Yeah, it's kind of a sneaky team that you don't realize has produced some really good defensive players.
Yeah, absolutely. So to go to, and I'm trying to figure out, like, real quick, I want to go to baseball, and I know that not a lot of people like recognize baseball players as athletes, which I don't think. I think hitting a fastball is one of the hardest things in sports to do. Troy Tulowitzki from Long Beach State, they call him the Dirtbags. He changed before Alex Rodriguez. It was Troy Tulowitzki. So, like, well, actually, sorry, it was Alex Rodriguez, and then after Alex Rodriguez, it was Troy Tulowitzki as far as changing the position at shortstop, because you had these defensive specialists, is what you would call at shortstop, like these little dinky guys, like Walt Weiss types, that would be really thin, that weren't known for hitting for power, they would hit for contact, they would get on base every now and again, but their main focus was defense. Troy Tulowitzki was voted as at the time, one of the best two-way shortstops in the game, meaning defensive and offense. He won a Gold Glove, won a bunch of Silver Sluggers with the Rockies. Like, Troy Tulowitzki, yeah, for sure. Like, in college, though, like I said, he was that big framed, not typical. A lot of people were like, "Can you play catcher?" He's like, "I'm not going to play catcher. Like, I'm not going to move." Seattle was supposed to draft him. They never did. The Rockies jumped on him, I think, at like 7 or 13. I can't remember which number.
Yeah, well, and he was phenomenal for the Rockies.
Oh, yeah, agreed.
And then the Rockies let him go.
Well, the injury history was there too, but still, it wasn't because of his big bodied frame.
No.
But he in 2007, he should have won Rookie of the Year. He really should have.
Yeah, no. I'm saying let him go in that. I think he went to St. Louis. They just paid him more money. The Rockies couldn't pay him.
Yeah, they weren't going to pay. Yeah, you're right. They weren't going to give him what they were going to offer him. But yeah, as far as changing the shortstop position, now everybody's like, we need these guys that can hit for power. Like, we need these guys that are going to hit, swing like 45, 50 home runs a season, and it's like they're not going to find too many shortstops that can do that.
And he's great in the field too. How about an athlete from another kind of obscure sport, but more recently, Gable Steveson, the heavyweight wrestler from the University of Minnesota? He only lost 2 matches in his entire wrestling career, 2 NCAA titles, and 2 years ago won an Olympic gold medal.
Wow.
So, I mean, we don't have professional wrestling in the same context as like we have professional football or basketball. So he has obviously now turned to wrestle in the WWE.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, Gable Steveson, named after the prolific and legendary wrestler Dan Gable. I wanted to give a little shout out to college wrestling.
Okay, fine. If you're gonna go wrestling, then I'm gonna go The Rock from Miami.
Okay.
Like, it wasn't even on my list at all, but The Rock. For those of you that don't know, this is back when they started the U. Back in the with Jimmy Johnson days, like you had Michael Irvin, Deion Sanders, and then since then Clinton Portis was gay, like Ray Lewis.
Ray Lewis, for sure. Oh yeah,
for sure. So big name dudes, and then The Rock. He was actually a really good player, but he wasn't good enough to get on the field because back then they had everybody.
Oh, yeah.
And you had even Jeremy Shockey, the tight end. So like, yeah, The Rock. We'll just nobody really knows. He went to Miami, he played there. He actually had a couple snaps. I think he recorded 1 sack in his career, and then after that he went on to a WWE career and acting career. Yeah. And now he's huge.
Yeah, oh yeah. Yeah, for that like 10 to 12 year stretch, Miami was putting. They would have a situation where their third string running back is Clinton Portis,
Heisman winner,
because you've got Willis McGahee and then you've got Frank Gore ahead of him, right? You know what I'm saying? Like they were so freaking deep, and they were putting 10, 11, 12 guys in the NFL every year.
And it's funny, that quarterback was never ever very good.
No,
like they always had a really bad like Van Dyke this year is getting
Ken Dorsey. You had Ken Dorsey back in the first initial reboot under Howard Schnellenberger. You had Gino Toretta, who won the Heisman. Mm-hmm. But then after that, they've all been mediocre. It's the recipe has been big tight ends, running, and spectacular defense.
And now, and hopefully I don't want to get on a tangent about Van Dyke. Everybody's got this guy hyped up as this next great. I don't think he's that good personally, but whatever. They're switching their gears, and hopefully Miami can get back. But I want to do a tradition on Miami too. The smoke. The Miami smoke that the players come out of actually was so it pissed off Penn State. Their coach, Paterno, back in the day, said, we don't want Miami to do their smoke because it was played. The national championship was played in a neutral stadium, and they didn't think. Miami still did it. They still did it to piss them off. So ever since I think it was like the 1980s, they came out with the white smoke, and they would just to hype players up. The fans going nuts. Players, obviously, when you're running through smoke, you feel like a god. You know what I mean? So so the Miami tradition of running through the white smoke, I thought was awesome.
They do. ESPN did a spectacular job on both of those 30 for 30s. Mm-hmm. The U, incredible. And you realize these are tremendous athletes, but they're also kind of a-holes. Like they know they're good, and they're cocky. But you know what? They back it up on the field.
They deserved it. Yeah. They did have. There was a lot of speculation where they had the hit pot or whatever. Like you put whoever has the biggest hit.
Oh yeah.
So this is back when everybody. This is proof that they paid players. Like we know they paid players.
No question about it.
Miami wasn't a secret about it. We're like, no. Anyway, what do you got?
No question about it. I'm going to jump back to players real quick.
Okay.
About Luke Kuechly. From 2009 to 2011, did you have one on there?
No, I love Luke Kuechly.
All right, let me just run through these accolades real quick, and then you tell me, because I think you know more about.
I don't know about him in Carolina.
Boston College linebacker, still holds the career all-time record for 532 tackles in just 3 seasons. Mm-hmm. Every season he played, he had over 150 tackles.
So
in 2011, he collected 191 tackles, 3 sacks, 3 interceptions, 2 forced fumbles, won the Bronco Nagurski Award. Now check this out. He still, to this day, holds the top 2 single-season tackles records and 3 of the top 17 of all time. He's the best to ever do it.
Since Dick Butkus, for sure.
That's a good point.
Arguably, since Dick Butkus,
In the modern college football.
I would say he's the modern generation of Dick Butkus.
Yeah. They played fewer games back then.
And he came to the NFL and he dominated.
Mm-hmm.
Like he was day one. This is your defense. And there's a bunch of videos. It's like no wonder Luke Kuechly retired early because he had to avoid going insane. But there's a bunch of times where he's putting dragging them to the right spot, and it's insane how just his IQ level.
Oh, he was He wasn't maybe the biggest, maybe not the most talented,
but he was sideline to sideline.
Yeah. He analyzed what was happening, very much kind of like a Drew Brees did at quarterback, right?
Yeah.
To overcome your physical limitations by just being able to analyze and know what's going on.
It's like one of those things. I think it was if his talent was peaked, but his hard work
Oh,
He
yeah.
outworked very, very talented players for sure. I can't speak enough about Luke Kuechly. I thought Luke Kuechly, it's unfortunate he retired, but I'm very proud of him for retiring early. You know what I mean? Understanding that he was
Sure.
going to have a lot of medical issues it's just he's done it all. He really has. I hope he comes back as linebacker coach because imagine being a linebacker.
Oh, I think he'd be a great coach. Yeah.
Oh man. But yeah, so with Luke Kuechly, you're talking about. I'm going to go to one of the greatest Olympians of all time, Michael Phelps, from Michigan.
Yeah.
One of the greatest. Can I just say he's the greatest Olympian of all time? Like he's
Smoke weed every day.
Okay, Jeremy Tunsil over here. No, Michael Phelps, I think, is without a doubt.
Yeah.
Everybody would agree.
Greatest swimmer of all
Olympian
time.
of all time.
Yeah.
Came from,
Olympian,
unfortunately, it sucks that he went from Michigan, but that's okay. You know what I mean? Couldn't gone to a better school, whatever. No, I'm kidding. The fact that Michael Phelps is not really getting any love for a college athlete, I think. But at the same time, he went to the University of Michigan. I don't think he actually technically ever swam for him. I think he swam for Towson. I don't think he swam for Michigan. But he did go to Michigan. So he's in the college spectrum. That's why I'm including him. And if not, he can be an honorable mention because I have 2 honorable mentions that I'm going to list after this. 28. Cool. 28 medals?
28 Olympic medals for Michael Phelps.
About the greatest of all time. Like, yeah. And I remember his first Olympics, I think he was like 19 or 20.
That was 2000 in Australia.
He took like 8th.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So it was like, who's this guy? Well, he's a 19-year-old kid competing against the best in the world. You know what I mean? So Michael Phelps, huge shout out to you, big guy.
Yeah. I got a big under the radar rivalry that we're going to get in real time your reaction to this because I didn't know a bunch of this. We knew it was a rivalry, Colorado State, Wyoming. Yeah. But let me read you this snippet storyline here, okay? Okay. This football rivalry between the two schools dates back to Thanksgiving Day, November 30th, 1899. The first ever matchup between the two schools was their first game of Colorado Agricultural, known as now as Colorado State, ever played outside the state of Colorado. Anyways, in the game, a disagreement between the officials that the two schools brought in created a controversial ending to the game. At the time, the schools would provide their own officials for the game. The game concluded with Wyoming in a forfeit being called over Colorado agricultural official Edward House, who ruled that Wyoming official E.D. MacArthur and the Wyoming team were refusing to abide by the rule book. After the forfeit was called, Colorado agricultural players began leaving the field. The official MacArthur reportedly exclaimed to Wyoming that he did not give a damn for the rules and instructed the Wyoming team to run in for a touchdown. This action reportedly set off a brawl between the two teams. That is a storied history right there.
No, well, I mean, I'm sure that today's players, they might get told that, but they probably don't know about that.
That is awesome.
All you hear is the border war this, the border war that, and like you just know that those teams in every single sport flat out hate each other. And that's a great.
That's story. Why. Can I just do a sidebar here?
Yeah.
Colorado joins the Pac-12, and the Pac-12 tries, and so does Colorado, and whatever to some extent Utah. They try and create this artificial rivalry between Colorado and Utah. That's not what makes rivalries. This is what creates rivalries.
Yeah.
Colorado will always have a rivalry with Nebraska for reasons exactly like this.
But that's because they put their name on the trophy, right? Like that's a big deal. Like a big thing to do with it. Nebraska put their name on the trophy as winning it before they.
Yeah, but I mean, there's a number of things. Okay, in 1991, when Colorado won the national championship, they actually ended up having to have a share because the coaches poll by one vote picked Georgia Tech as the national champion. Every team, every coach in the Big 8 at the time voted for Colorado except for Tom Osborne in Nebraska. Voted for Georgia Tech. I mean, there's a whole number of things. Obviously, so I mean, we can do another episode where we can get into all of the crap on rivalries. But that's a storied rivalry. Colorado, Utah. I mean, maybe one day, but it's like you can't artificially create this stuff.
Just because states touch each other doesn't mean that. And that sounds so. Yeah. No, but like just because they're bordering each other doesn't mean that they have to be rivals.
For sure.
I mean, like Kansas, Colorado isn't a rivalry.
Colorado, New Mexico.
Yeah, Colorado, New Mexico. No, nobody considers New Mexico a rival at all. That's my point. Like,
New Mexico State.
Okay. Okay. I guess. And aren't they UNLV rivals too? UNLV?
Yeah, not that. I mean, basketball, maybe.
Maybe, yeah. Okay. Either way, the point is, like the CSU Wyoming border war is like legit hate. Like, just like I think Air Force and Sea are slowly becoming rivals.
Yes.
I really do. Like because of the last 2 years. I mean, if you think about it, like if you're CU, you have to beat them this year.
Yeah, you don't want to play them.
No,
because it's a no-win. You're not going to get credit if you beat them.
And if you lose, it's just more games. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's what we're saying.
It's going to be a bad year for Colorado.
But you can't force them to happen. And kudos to Utah for doing that stuff. But there's another tradition that I want to talk about. Speaking of, actually, it's a lot of people didn't know this. I'm not really a Notre Dame fan, but I think what they do with their helmets is really cool. They paint their helmets after every single game. They repaint them so that they're finally buffed. That's why they look so golden. You're like, they didn't hit anybody. No, they hit people. Trust me, they hit people. But they actually use gold flakes in the paint for all. That's why they're so. It's pure gold that they're wearing. I think that's really cool.
Oh, Notre Dame is I would say maybe more than any other school. Notre Dame has more myths. Win one for the Gipper and the Golden Domers. They have the sign, play like a champion today. Touchdown Jesus, first down Moses. Yeah. Also, you have Manti Te'o's imaginary girlfriend. Yeah. I mean, just so many traditions at Notre Dame.
I love using that. Still to this day, if somebody trips, I'm like, oh, there's Manti Te'o's girlfriend right there. It's beautiful. But yeah, it's still easy to pick on Notre Dame because of the tradition and the legacy that they have. But at the same time, just take it, be proud. If you're a Notre Dame fan, you know what? They hate you because they hate you. Just say that.
Mm-hmm.
What do you got, man?
You got to go Herschel Walker. Your Georgia Dogs. I'm going to allow you to
I'm not trying to be biased.
over 1,600 yards and 15 touchdowns in all 3 seasons he played at Georgia. So, I mean, starting as a freshman, he's going 1,600 yards, 15 touchdowns. As a freshman, he led the Dogs to their first ever national championship. Yeah. And then obviously he won the Heisman in his junior year, 1,752 yards, 16 touchdowns that year.
Oh, so good. Yeah, his first run I think was against Tennessee, and he ran over 2 dudes to score. And at that point, you're like, all right, this guy's gonna be really good.
He's a man-child.
We obviously weren't born when he was playing. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? But I will list another player that I think is really, really cool, Bo Jackson from Auburn. One of probably the second greatest SEC running back next to Herschel Walker. And that's debatable, right? Like, I got in an argument with somebody who's an Arkansas fan and said Darren McFadden had a better college career than Bo Jackson. No. Like, just because he has better stats doesn't mean that he was a better college overall career. You're comparing apples to oranges when it comes to the generation and stuff like that. Everybody knows Bo knows.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody knows.
And Bo was a professional baseball player, too.
That's what I'm saying. Like, he did 2 sports at the highest level, and he was the highest you could achieve. He was basically like an MVP for both of those sports. I think he won the MVP for the NFL at one point. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe the NFL. You know what I know he did win, though? Just a documentary I watched a while ago. No, it's something you wouldn't think of. He won the MVP of the baseball All-Star game.
Okay.
I think maybe first or second year he played in the MLB.
Number 1 overall. Like, there you go. But yeah, so Bo Jackson, definitely hats off to you as being one of, if not the, I mean, I'm not going to say you're because I'm a Georgia fan, but you're 1A, 1B, Herschel Walker, Bo Jackson. Like,
Darren McFadden was fantastic. Tremendous. The
but
honor.
He's nothing compared to those guys.
I don't know if he's too far behind them, but the honor that he is privileged to hold that is so terribly sad. It yanks at my heartstrings. He's the only player ever, 2 years in a row, back-to-back, second place in the Heisman.
Oh, yeah. He should have won it.
Lost out to Troy Smith at Ohio State in 07, I believe, and then lost out to Tim Tebow as a sophomore in 08.
Yeah, well, Tebow is Tebow was always going to win the Heisman that year, but I thought for sure he was going to win it in 07. I really did. He's a good player, but we're talking like legends of the game, and I don't think D-Mac is even up there with legends. Like, he's iconic, but when I think of like Bo Nix, not Bo Nix. God, gross. When I think of Bo Jackson, Oregon's on my mind. No, yeah. When I think of Bo Jackson and Herschel Walker, I think just 2 iconic. I think of like Fran Tarkenton. I think of Mr. Inside, Mr. Outside. Players like that changed the game forever. Yeah. Derek Jeter, even, who went to Michigan. Fun fact.
And another justification for your Bo Jackson commentary, the 2 seasons prior to Bo Jackson getting there, I mean, for like a decade, 15 years prior, they lost to Alabama every year. Okay, the 2 seasons prior to Bo Jackson getting to Auburn, they went 5-6 each of those years.
That's crazy.
In his second year at Auburn, they went 11-1, and then they won They won the Sugar Bowl. I mean, and who was their quarterback? The fact we don't remember who their quarterback was means he was driving the ship.
Yeah.
He did all of that
He was the
basically.
team.
Yeah,
He was the
right.
entire team.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you want to just do like six or seven more.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Yeah.
How about let's jump back to a tradition,
Okay.
and let's do dotting the I for the script Ohio in Ohio
Yes.
State.
Oh, so pretty.
So fun.
I learned about this.
And it's not just at Ohio State, but I think it's awesome to see the like the big tuba players when they high step in there. You know what I mean?
Those guys do so
But
much work.
a couple of names that have dotted the I. This is a very big honor for really people all over the place, but mainly Ohio people. But you got Woody Hayes, Bob Hope, Jack Nicholas dotted the I. For those of you that for the people that don't know, you want to explain?
Yeah. So what I learned is that it was actually the invention of it was because Ohio State band ended a little too soon. So their sousaphone player at the time was the dot, and he did a kick and a spin and then a bow to end it, and that's the tradition that has carried on since then. So that's why dotting the I is such a special tradition or a special privilege for any iconic figure, iconic celebrity, saxophone player, anybody that gets named. I found this out. Anybody that gets named on band scholarship, that like after working, that was a walk on that got their scholarship, they get to dot the I.
That's cool.
So that's really cool too. So like yeah, and that's how it started. For those of you that don't know, I'm gonna go with a basketball player, and I'm gonna say it's Shane Battier. So a lot of people don't like him because he went to Duke, and I get that. But at the same time, like he's not that you don't hate him. Like I don't think that anybody like you hate a lot of Duke players, but Shane Battier wasn't one of those guys you're like I hate this guy. I can't stand him. No, I thought he was phenomenal from '98 to 2001. He didn't change Duke because Duke was always on for basketball, but anytime you stand out at Duke, you're a really, really good player. So,
yeah, I mean, he played very much. Let me see what you think about this. Played very much a similar style to Tim Duncan for the Spurs.
Yeah.
Very a little more reserved, tall, not quite huge and imposing like Shaq, but fundamental and skilled.
Very fundamental.
I think he's a tremendous player. Speaking of basketball, how about I bring up for my childhood team, my Maryland Terps, Juan Dixon of the
Maryland childhood fan. No way.
Big time. Yeah, I think I probably got Juan Dixon up here on the board somewhere.
That's awesome.
Anyways, yeah, he led Maryland to their first ACC championship in something like a decade. This is going to be early 2000s. Then took them on a run in the NCAA tournament, one of the greatest we've seen, and marched Maryland into the national championship game where they then won. And I mean, just a tremendous, tremendous player. He was a great shooter. That team was really pretty stacked. You had Steve Blake. You had Carlos Boozer, or not Carlos Boozer, Lonnie Wilcox. You had a number of guys that went on to be pros. But Juan Dixon was the primetime player on that team.
That's awesome. I'm gonna go one more player and one more tradition, and I think the player that I can't leave off any list ever, especially on the first episode of this Part 1 series, is Magic Johnson. The fact that he was able so dominant Michigan State, so dominant in a Laker uniform, they have a document. It's not a document. It's a show now. I think it's like Laker Time or whatever.
Yeah,
it's on HBO.
Prime time.
It's about him basically. Like it's about them realizing, hey, we need to get this guy, and he changed the face of the Lakers. You know what I mean? He was just dominant in Michigan from '78 to '79. He only played 2 years.
Yeah, but took Michigan State to that championship game they played against Indiana State. Larry Bird was the lead player for Indiana State at the time. Those are unquestionably two of the best college basketball players of all time. If you mind if I jump in, I'll jump in with one more here, and that is David Robinson. David Robinson. I found this out as I was doing some of the March Madness stuff I was doing earlier. David Robinson still to this day holds the record for most rebounds in an NCAA tournament history. He played at Navy, by the way. Wow. A lot of people don't understand that he actually had a Navy career in the reserves while he was playing in the NBA. David Robinson, a tremendous athlete, still to this day holds that record. Just an outstanding individual talent.
Mm-hmm. Phenomenal. I think this is a good tradition to end on. So it's the original homecoming, which Missouri had, and I did a little bit of research, found out that in 1911, the athletic director had the idea to invite all the school's alumni to at the time, the biggest rivalry of the year, which was Kansas-Missouri game. It's still a big rivalry to this day. But he invited all the former students, former players, literally called, "Hey, you're coming back home, homecoming, come on down." And Missouri started that, and it's a tradition that's high schools, middle schools now. Any school you can think of have a homecoming game because of what the athletic director did in 1911, which I thought was really cool and really special. But yeah, that was a lot of fun actually.
Yeah.
I'm excited for the next part, which is, and I'm trying to load this up real quick because I'm always a little slow.
Oh yeah.
But here we go. I'm very excited. I'm glad that you guys got a chance to see how we kind of do things too. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of give and take, which we enjoy. But this has been a Right on Cue and a Fan Section podcast episode. Thank you so much. Next episode is going to be part 2 of our top 50 all time. Thank you so much.